Shri Mahaganapatir Avatumam. Shri Mahaganapatir Avatumam. Shri Mahaganapatir Avatumam. Siddhi Vinayako Matangamukha Shri Mahaganapatir Avatumam. Siddhi Vinayako Matangamukha Shri Mahaganapatir Avatumam. Siddhi Vinayako.
We are here at Tiruvarur, the Mooladhara Kshetram. On the west side of the temple, we have the massive Kamalalayam tank. And on the northeastern corner of the Kamalalaya Tirtham, we have the shrine of Ganesha as Matruraita Vinayagar.
A rather busy traffic intersection.
A very happening junction, and Ganesha chose this to be his spot. He is probably the most popular Ganesha of Tiruvarur.
Tiruvarur, of course, holds a very special significance for followers of Carnatic music. It is here that the Mummurtigal, as we call them today, Tyagaraja, muddusvAmi Dikshitar and Shama Shastri were born. And of course, more so for muddusvAmi Dikshitar and his family, because I think they were associated very closely with this Kshetra and the temple.
Most of the music and dance tradition of Tyagaraja Swami temple was in fact framed and established by the family of muddusvAmi Dikshitar.
Ramaswami Dikshitar, his father. This Kirtanam is in the Raga Gowla, set to Trishya Jati Tripuratalam. Gowla by itself is a very ancient Raga. It is listed as one among the 18 Purva Prasiddha Melas which were listed even by Venkatamakin in the Chaturdandi Prakashika. When Venkatamakin lists the 18 Purva Prasiddha Melas, Gowla features in the 6th in this list. Gowla is of course today classified as a Janya Raga of Madhava Gowla, the 15th Mela. It has 5 swaras in the ascent and 6 swaras in the descent. Sari ma pa ni sa, sani pa ma ri ga ma ri sa. So this sani pa ma ri ga ma ri, this vakra phrase, ri ga ma ri, is a characteristic phrase of Gowla Raga, the vakratva.
Interestingly, Bija for Ganesha is again Kakara, the Ka there. And Ganapati, the Murti as such, is Bakra in nature, the half man, half animal combination that he is. This composition has a long running list of many different names of Ganesha. Iconographically, we have a list of 16 forms of Ganesha, the Shodasha Ganapati as we call them. There is also a 32 forms of Ganesha list, but the 16 is very popular. Each of the form has a specific Nama, Rupa and Guna, name, form and attribute. Mahaganapati is the most easily approachable form of Ganesha. 4-armed, he quietly sits in a very comfortable posture and blesses his devotees with all the basic requirements that we have. And Dikshitar chose this particular phrase or name to kickstart his composition.
Interestingly, Subrahma Dikshitar lists 2 Dikshitar Kirtanams under Gowla Raga. One, Shri Mahaganapatir Avatumam on this Matruraita Vinayagar. And second, Tyagaraja Palaya Shumam in Aditala.
So both the Gowla Raga Kritis are dedicated to Tiruvarur.
Both these Gowla Kirtanams are dedicated to Tiruvarur. Not only that, both of them have the Raga Mudra also appearing. And both of them begin with the Rishabhaswara. Ri, Tyagaraja, Ri. And of course, Shri Mahaganapatir Avatumam.
Dikshitar begins the composition by addressing to Ganesha as Shri Mahaganapatir and requests him to protect him. That's a standard format that we see in many compositions of muddusvAmi Dikshitar. Avatumam, may he protect me. And this composition is set in the Pratama Vibhakti. The name appears as such. And then he goes on to describe the form of Ganesha.
Siddhi Vinayako.
Siddhi is personified as a Devi of Ganesha, but the actual Siddhi is the fulfillment of all your prayers. A level where all your desires are all fulfilled. You don't have anything left to pray for or ask to. Nothing material as such.
And the Pallavi ends with Matanga Mukha In fact, if you see the notation of this Kirtanam in the Sangeeta Sampradaya Pradarshini, it is in this phrase that we see the Vakra phrase. Riga Marisa Nisa Matanga Mukha.
The iconography is also Vakra in nature, as I told you.
See, the construction of this Kirtanam, if you look at the Sangeeta Sampradaya Pradarshini, is very interesting. The first line, Shri Mahaganapatir Avatumam. See, this unique musical phrase is embedded in the Pallavi. It's the seed for Manodharmam singing and subsequently Ragam elaboration and so on. But this is where the sensitivity comes. As a musician, one needs to be very sensitive as to how one would sing Sangatis to this line. It would be very alluring to sing Ganapati Avatumam. It's a beautiful phrase. But when one sings that, then this zigzag phrase, as you were referring to, is lost. And that phrase is lost for posterity if we don't preserve it.
Kamajanaka vidhindra sannuta Kamalalaya tatanivaso Komalatara Pallava Padakara Guruguhaamrta Shivatmaja Komalatara Pallava Padakara Guruguhaamrta Shivatmaja Shri Maha.
The Dvitiyakshara Prasa is a very integral part of any Carnatic music composition. The second syllable of the Pallavi and the second syllable of the Anupallavi must be the same. It is a rule for a Carnatic composition. Similarly, in this composition, we have Shri Mahaganapatir Avatumam in the Pallavi. Ma is the second syllable. In the Anupallavi, we have Kama Janaka. Kama Janaka Vidhindra Sannuta Kamalalaya Tatanivasu. Kama Janaka Vidhindra Sannuta.
Dikshitar generally, when he praises a deity in a composition, he also makes a mention about people who prayed to the same deity before. In this case, for Ganesha, he makes this list again. Kama Janaka, Vidhi, Indra. So the three prominent devotees of Ganesha here mentioned by Dikshitar is Kama Janaka, the one who was the root cause of the birth of Kama. That's Mahavishnu. Vidhi is Brahma and then Indra. Interestingly, he could have just mentioned the name of Vishnu straight away. But this is Dikshitar, he has a way. So he addresses Vishnu as Kama Janaka, the one who caused the birth of Kama. It was here at Mooladhara Kshetram, Tiruvarur, Mahavishnu and Mahalakshmi performed a penance, a long penance to request Shiva to give them the pleasure of having a child. And that was how Manmata was born. In fact, that is the most significant festival that is celebrated here. And that coincides with the Janma Nakshatram of Sri MuddusvAmi Dikshitar also. The Vasanta Utsavam falls on the Kritike star of Panguni month. And the Vasanta Utsavam is celebrated here to celebrate the birth of Vasanta or Kama, Manmata, where the entire world becomes beautiful. So Kama Janaka refers to the Stalapuranam also. I think this is probably the shortest version of Stalapuranam of Tiruvarur. Kama Janaka is Mahavishnu. And then Vidhi is Brahma, Indra. So the three prominent gods there, they've all prayed to Mahaganapati.
And the Anupallavi starts with the Panchamaswaram. Kama, straight Pa with a Swaraksharam on Ma. Kama, Ma, Ma. And immediately we have the characteristic Gowla phrase, Rigamari, which we spoke about in the Pallavi as well. Kama Janaka Rigama Vidhindra Sannuta. And it goes on to Kamalalaya Tatanivaso. Kamalalaya Tatanivaso. This is the Kamalalayam against which we are sitting here.
The straightforward Dikshitar's way of telling where the temple is. He is right at the banks of Kamalalayam. This is a very interesting location for a temple dedicated to Ganesha.
The ascent to that, the phrase Kamalalaya Tatanivaso could not have been more obvious. Kamalalaya Tatanivaso. And it heralds into the Tarasthai. One thing I was observing, this mention of Kamalalayam also occurs in the Todi Kirtanam, Kamalambike, which is commonly sung at the beginning or before we sing the Kamalamba Navavarana Kirtanams.
More a Dhyana Kriti as it is called.
It is called the Dhyana Kirtanam now. And there also we have this phrase, Kamalalaya. I couldn't help but notice that both these references to Kamalalayam head straight into the Tarasthai. The magnificence of this Kamalalayam and the magnificence of the Tarasthai, I don't know, was it deliberate?
Kamalalayam is not like any other temple tank. It's not a mere tank. This is, according to the Puranas, considered to be Mukti as such. A dip in Kamalalaya blesses you Mukti, blesses you with Mukti. So Kamalayam is Mukti by herself, if I can say so. That's why Kamalambika is directly referred to as, you are the Vaibhavam of Kamalalaya.
Kamalalaya Tirtha Vaibhave.
So I think it's very sensible to take it all the way up high and keep it there for a few seconds.
Then the Anupallavi section segues into a Madhyamakala. Now this Madhyamakala phrase in both the Anupallavi and Charana is again one of the recurring features of muddusvAmi Dikshita's Kirtanams. In this Kirtanam, interestingly, we have a very short Madhyamakala kind of phrase in the Pallavi. Matanga Mukha. A fast phrase, if you want to call it that. In the Anupallavi, we have a slightly lengthier Madhyamakala phrase. Komalatara Pallava Padakara Guruguhaamrta Shivatmaja. Komalatara Pallava Padakara Guruguhaamrta.
Komalatara, it can only be compared, the Kara and his Pada, both can only be compared, the hands and the feet of the god can be compared to the tender creepers. Ganesha is a beautiful artistic combination also. When we teach theory of arts, we talk about Ganesha's iconography because it's a very classic example of how we could perceive balancing the head of a fully grown elephant on a toddler, body of a toddler. Pallava quite literally means a creeper. So here in this case, the feet is tender and it is just sprouted out like a creeper.
Komalatara Pallava Padakara.
Pada and Kara, both. His, the holy feet and the hands of the deity is as komalam or as tender as a creeper, a Pallava.
Guruguhaamrta.
He is the Agraja or the elder brother of Guruguha, Subramanya. Of course, the Vagyekara's mudra that it is.
Guruguhaamrta Shivatmaja. Again, we have the Vakra phrase, Rigamari. So this is the hallmark of the composition of a Mahan Vagyekara. There is an interplay of Raga Swarupa, of the local Purana, the Sthala Purana, and the beautiful wordplay that one finds.
Suvarna Karshana Vignarajopada Bujo Gauravarna Vasanadharo Palachandro.
The legendary town of Tiruvarur has many interesting stories associated with it, and several of them involves Sri Sundaramurthy Swamigal, one of the most popular saint poets of the Shaiva Siddhanta tradition, who was active around the 8th century of the Common Era. He was a permanent resident of this town for a very long part of his life, and he was also traveling on pilgrimages. During one such pilgrimage to Vriddhachalam, an equally ancient temple town in Tamil Nadu, which has a grand temple complex dedicated to Shiva as Vriddhagirishwarar, he prayed to Shiva to bestow him with a lot of gold, money and gifts. Shiva, who has acknowledged every prayer of Sri Sundaramurthy Swamigal, was more than happy to give him a lot of gold. Sundarar also had a second request. He said, I'm traveling elsewhere and it will be quite some time before I reach Tiruvarur. So help me courier this gold all the way to Tiruvarur. And that's gold, right? I mean, you cannot just hand it over to anybody. And Sundarar had a suggestion. He said, may I leave this big bag of gold at Manimuttar, in Manimuttar, a river at Vriddhachalam, and requested Shiva to transport it to Kamalalayam tank at Tiruvarur, so that whenever he is back, he can always come and probably produce a chalan and get it back from Kamalalayam. And Shiva again acknowledged that request too. So he said, go ahead, leave the bag of gold at Manimuttar. Sundarar was happy. He just left it in the river, in the stream, in the flow. he continued on his pilgrimage, visited many other temple towns, and after a year or so, he comes to Tiruvarur. Went to Tyagaraja Swami's shrine, prayed to him, thanked him for all the great darshan that he had, went home and shared this news with his wife, Paravai Nachiyar, who giggled and said, "Will anybody do this? How can gold which was left at Manimuttaru at Vrindachalam be received here at Kamalalayam in Tiruvarur?" Sundarar said, "No, but my request was acknowledged by Shiva. He has promised to transport the gold." And he said, like, "I'm sure it will be here." And this news spread like wildfire. More people joined him on this search. So he came here to the temple tank, prayed to Shiva, addressed the deity of Vrindachalam, Vriddagirishwarar, and sung a set of 11 songs, verses which prayed for the gold to be bestowed with. After having sung the prayers, he stepped into the water, started searching for it. And his request was, of course, acknowledged at once. And the entire bag of gold, which was left at Manimuttaru, came to him here. He could receive it. And that miracle happened in front of the entire population of Tiruvarur. Interestingly, when Sundaramurthy Swamigal left that bag in Manimuttaru, he managed to scoop off a small chunk of gold from it. Traditionally, it's called as Machappon or sample gold, so that when you receive it elsewhere, you can always cross-check the quality and be sure that it is the same gold. And he did have that little chunk of gold, and he wanted to verify this. And interestingly, they were of equal quality, and he was sure, like, this was the gold that I left at Manimuttaru, which has been received here at Kamalalayam tank.
How was he able to verify it?
Periya Puranam, which documents this episode, says that Sundarar just cross-checked himself. But the local legend has an interesting twist to it. Not knowing how to verify this, Sundarar was struggling. And that is when Ganesha, the remover of all kinds of obstacles, appeared in front of him as a goldsmith and said, like, "Well, I can help you. Professionally, I certify quality of gold." He said, like, "Give me what you have and let me cross-check." And Vinayagar sat at the northeastern corner of the temple tank, rubbed the sample chunk of gold and whatever gold was received, and certified that both of them are of the same quality. And that's why he's called as Matruraita Vinayagar, the one who could verify the matru or the quality of gold. The quality of gold is to an extent dependent on the amount of copper that has been mixed with it as an alloy. And that is when you have Pattarai Mathu Tangam. The matru is that unit of measurement, the quality certificate that one gets. And this Vinayaka certified the gold that was received from Kamalalayam, and hence Matruraita Vinayagar.
And this is what finds its reference at the very beginning of the Charanam. Suvarna Karshana Vignarajo.
Well, maybe not, but most probably that this story has been popular around the times that Muthuswami Dikshitar was active and composing these songs. He could have made a reference to it. Otherwise, directly, it just refers to Ganesha as Swarnakarshana Ganapati, the one who attracts gold or the one who can make gold out of anything. And here, this is not the material gold, the shining metal, the valuable metal. It's making us the purest form of gold. And hence, Matruraita Vinayagar, who can make us all, churn us all into that very valuable, pure form of gold.
So the Charana begins with the Rishabhaswara again. Suvarna Ri. And again, the Vakra phrase Rigamari. Rigamari. How the Raga Swarupa keeps occurring and keeps reinforcing itself, and how the composer, the Mahan Vagyakaras like Muthuswami Dikshitar are very unambiguous in their approach of their Raga. So Suvarna Karshana Vignarajo, Padambujo, Gaura Varna Vasanadharo.
The Charanam has just a complete detailed description of the iconography, the Murti Tattva, and various names of Ganesha associated with one unique attribute of him. Here in this case, his feet is lotus-like, and he always wears a white silk cloth.
So Gaura Varna Vasanadharo. So Gaura Varna also brings in the Raga Mudra.
Oh, Gowla.
Gowla. So this is called what we say a Suchaka Raga Mudra. It's indicative of the Raga. In the other Gowla Kirtanam, Tyagaraja Palayashumam, you find the straight usage, Gaulangam. Here, of course, Gaura Varna Vasanadharo, Phala Chandro, Naradi Vinuta Lambodharo.
Phala Chandro, which means one who has the crescent moon resting on his forehead. That's a direct sign of somebody who has achieved a very great level at tapas in yoga. So the moon there is a metaphor for somebody who has achieved a very great height in yoga practices. So this being the Mooladhara Kshetra, very closely associated with the Kundalini yoga, and Ganesha is the god dedicated to the Mooladhara Chakram. So it's believed with the blessings of Ganesha, the Kundalini gets triggered from the Mooladhara, where it was static till then. And it starts going upwards, crosses each of the chakra, and the positioning of the crescent moon at the forehead is indicative, is symbolic of the Kundalini which has reached the Brahmatantra.
Phala Chandro, Naradi Vinuta Lambodaro, Naradi. So there you also have Na and Ra being a Swarakshara. So if you look at the notation of the Kirtanam in the Sangeeta Sampradaya Prashni, you will find the Ni, Ri, Swaraksharam for Nara, Naradi Vinuta Lambodaro.
Naradi Vinuta. There again, the devout, they are classified based on the plane of existence. Naras are the human beings, the mere mortals. And then you have when he says Naradi, it includes from the human beings, then you have the rishis, then you have the devas, the celestial. So there is this order, the hierarchy. And that kind of matches with the swara as it climbs up to. So Naradi Vinuta.
Lambodaro.
Lambhodara. Lambha Udara. Udaram is his abdomen, the belly, the pot belly that he has, which is very huge, which is of course representative of the Andha, the Brahmanda, which is him as such.
Lambodaro, Kuvalaya, Swavishana, Pashankusha, Modaka Prakashakaru.
This is the direct description of the iconography. He has the lily flower in his hand.
Kuvalaya.
Kuvalaya.
Okay.
Svavishana is the broken tusk. His own tusk.
Swavishana.
Swavishana. Okay. His own tusk, which he's managed to prick off and hold a part of it in his hand.
So Kuvalaya, Swavishana, Pasha, Ankusha.
Pasha and Ankusha, which he holds again, the noose, Pasha, and the goad, the weapon that's used to control elephants. A mahout uses it.
Modaka.
Modaka is the Modakam, the Bhakshanam, which Ganesha is fond of, which is also representative of the Shuddha Jnana, which is the Purnam, as we call it, the sweet part of it, which is covered by dough, which is tasteless.
So Kuvalaya, Swavishana, Pasha, Ankusha, Modaka Prakashakaru.
He holds all of this in his four hands. The lower right has Kuvalaya, the lily flower, and Swavishana, the tusk, and Pasha, Ankusha in the upper left and right hands, and his lower left hand holds the Modaka.
Prakashakaro bhava jaladhinavo Mula prakriti swabhava sukhataro.
Bhava Jaladhinavo.
The one who helps us cross the mighty ocean of samsara, birth and rebirth, the vicious cycle. So he is this ferryman who helps us cross it. Nav, the ferry. And he is the one who is also the ferry who helps us cross this mighty ocean.
Mula Prakriti Swabhava Sukhataro.
He is the raw matter or Mula Prakriti from which creation starts. That's his Swabhava. His attribute is to be the root cause for anything for that matter. Any creation in general or anything to be particular. And the one who bestows you Sukha.
Sukhataro. And then the Kirtanam concludes with the characteristic Madhyamakala ending, which is a fixture in all Kirtanams of muddusvAmi Dikshitar, especially in the Charana portion. The Pallavi has a very small piece, Matanga Mukha, small, faster tempo line. The Anupallavi has a 2-avartanam Madhyamakala phrase, and the Charana concludes with a 4-avartana Madhyamakala phrase. Ravi Sahasra Sannibhadeho Kavi Jananuta Moshikavaho. Musically, we must mention Ravi Sahasra Sannibhadeho Ravi Sahasra Riri Gariri.
One whose Tirumeni, the divine manifested form, is like dazzling. The one whose divine manifestation, the form, the Rupa, is as dazzling as 1,000 suns put together.
Ravi Sahasra.
Sahasra.
Ravisahasra Sannibha Deho, Kavi Jananuta.
Kavi Jananuta, the one who is praised by all poets. Generally, any literary work in Indian tradition will begin with an invocation to Ganesha. So there cannot be a poet who has not sung Ganesha. That's how it is. So anybody's work of literature will have an invocation. Kavi Jananuta.
Mushika Vaho.
Mushika Vaho, the one who rides on a rodent. The Mushikam, that's Vinayaka's Vahana.
Mushika Vaho. Avanata Devata Samoho.
The entire community of Devatas, they all fall at your feet. They pray to you.
And the phrase that we see in Avanata, Avanata Devata Samoho Pasanisa Avinasha Kaivalya Geho. Again you find the Rigamari. Kaivalya Pamari Gamari Sanisa Kaivalya Geho. Avinasha Kaivalya Geho.
Geho, in him resides liberation. He is the ultimate destination, which is liberation, moksha.
One thing that struck me the first time we see the Matruraita Pillayar Sannidhi is that the Sannidhi is a very small Sannidhi. Physically, it's a very small Sannidhi. But muddusvAmi Dikshitar highlights the grandeur of this Sannidhi by superimposing it with the local legend, with the Gowla Raga, with the music, the phraseology, and eventually the combination creates an edifice, a monument of grandeur.
Without visiting this shrine, when somebody hears to this composition, listens to this composition, might imagine this to be a grand structure with a lot of architectural detailing and the temple with a lot of festivities. But one will have to actually come here to see this temple is hardly 10 feet frontage, situated in a very prominent junction, but which is just packed with traffic and a lot of commotion today. And there resides the source of inspiration. That Ganesha quietly sits there, calm, who's been a witness to all the changes in the last how many ever centuries, which he only knows. And Dikshitar, this was enough for Dikshitar to be inspired to give a composition of this magnitude.
And small or big, I think one thing is unambiguous, that we don't need the Matruraita Vinayagar to verify the authenticity of this golden composition that we have. It is 100% pure, unambiguous, rich, grand Gowla that muddusvAmi Dikshitar has gifted to us to enjoy and revel in.
Shri Mahaganapatir Avatumam. Mahaganapatir Avatumam. Shri Mahaganapatir Avatumam. Siddhi Vinayako Matangamukha. Shri Mahaganapatir Avatumam. Siddhi Vinayako Matangamukha. Shri Mahaganapatir Avatumam. Siddhi Vinayako. Kamajanaka Vidindra Sannuta. Kamajanaka Vidindra Sannuta. Kamajanaka Vidindra Sannuta. Kamalaya Katanivaso. Kamajanaka Vidindra Sannuta. Kamalaya Katanivaso. Komalatara Pallava Padakara Guruguhaamrta Shivatmaja. Komalatara Pallava Padakara Guruguhaamrta Shivatmaja. Shri Mahaganapatir गणपतिरवतुमां सिद्धिविनायको मातङ्गमुख श्रीमहा गणपतिरवतुमां सिद्धिविनायको सुवर्णाकर्षण विघ्नराजो पादभुजो गौरवर्णवसनधरो फालचन्द्रो सुवर्णाकर्षण विघ्नराजो पदाम्बुजो गौरवर्णवसनधरो फालचन्द्रो नरादिविमुक्तलम्बोदरो कुवलय स्वविषाणपा